Yeah. So there's like two main conflicting moral frameworks, um, utilitarianism and deontology. And there's a lot of breakoffs between those two different things, and there's like mixtures between those two things. But those are the two like modern day main ethical frameworks that are being talked about today. Well, I'm here to tell you that taking to their logical conclusions, they're pretty similar and they're basically the same thing. So let's talk about it. So we have utilitarianism, which is like basically a consequentialist um, framework. The greatest good for the greatest amount of people. Um, Consequences is is what matters. We have deontology where it's like, listen, buddy, um, it's not about the consequences, it's about the action itself. Okay, cool, interesting. So here's the first item of discussion is that deontology pretends that it's not a consequentialist belief system. It is. Every moral framework is a consequentialist belief system. In order to have a moral framework, you need to have a desire, a preference, an end goal, right? If you're a deontologist and you say, all right, we ought to have these like rights or rules or like obligations. Okay, why ought we have these obligations? Why ought we have these rights? Rights for what? Why, like, why is this, like, why is a right to life, why is that a good thing? What does good mean? There needs to be an actual, like, preference, a desire, a an end goal for, like, where you're trying to get to. So if you view a society where we have um, rights and goals and obligations, um, because these things are good in and of themselves, um, good needs to mean something. Good by what standard? Good. Am I making sense here? It You need to have a direction, right? So moral frameworks imply a desire. A desire implies a consequence. You you're a deontologist. You believe in certain rights because these certain rights give you a certain consequence. If you are trying to convince someone of a certain moral framework, you are a consequentialist. You are a consequentialist. So both moral frameworks are consequentialists. Um, where where I think people might get messed up is when you get into like extreme examples. So we can like go into a trolley problem, um, where it's like you have uh on the track you have one fish versus 10 trillion people. You can pull the lever and kill the one fish and save the 10 trillion people, or you can let the train run and kill the 10 trillion people and not save the fish. And if you're a absolute like deontologist, um, and you believe that like fish have a right to life, um, you might be like kind of like forced to not pull the lever and have it kill the 10 trillion people instead of the fish. So extreme like hypotheticals like that is kind of what gets people to see the difference between deontology and utilitarianism. Um, and of course we can switch it around, right? Like we can make examples of for utilitarian we can make utilitarianism look bad as well with like examples of slavery or with examples of like um uh, killing people for their organs and stuff like that and to save people. Yeah, yeah. Okay, you get what I'm saying here. Um, but what I think is interesting is that even in those extreme examples, they're both still consequentialist. So, with deontology and the trolley problem with the fish, um, if like you, if you, the 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 wanted consequence is a world where we value rights, um, then yeah, not pulling the lever, you're actually like not violating the rights of the 10 trillion people. Um, Now obviously, someone you or me, right? As I'm generally more utilitarian, would view that as like a bad thing. Like, yeah, you should probably pull the lever, but like if you're viewing it strictly from a deontology like perspective, yeah, you're not violating the rights of the 10 trillion. Okay, but let's reverse a little bit. For the deontologist, going back to the beginning again, reverse. We reverse. Remember? Um, why ought we have these rights? Why ought we have these rights? Um, I would argue that it is to increase well-being. Now, this is a little bit of a jump because someone might argue differently, but I would argue that most people would argue this. Um, and this is probably the biggest jump I'm making through this argument. Um, and it's that the reason people have deontological views is because they think this in the long run will increase well-being. That calculating um suffering and calculated consequences gets really dicey, and if you just have like certain rules and certain like obligations, um most people don't think about ethics seriously, right? Like just have some easy rules to follow. Don't kill, don't lie, and for the most part, in most cases, it's going to be the right thing to do. And sometimes it's not going to be. Um, but for the most part, in the long run, it's going to be better just to have a basic foundation of what is good and just always do this. Always do what is good. Um, and that's good. That's that's going to be in a society where of normies and people that don't talk about ethical questions, yeah, that's gonna be so much easier. And that's kind of what I see like the deontology like position as, where it's like, okay, we have these certain rules and stuff, and these certain laws and these certain obligations because people don't think about ethics seriously, and it's going to be so much easier just to follow these positions, even if in certain situations, um, it's going to cause more suffering. In the long run, it's going to be better. Um, okay, well that's to me that's kind of sounding like a utilitarian kind of position where it's utilitarianism just with a bigger picture. Okay, switching over to utilitarianism, right? Um, think about utilitarianism for just like even a little bit, and eventually you're gonna come to the conclusion that you're gonna need certain rules. You're gonna actually need certain rights in order to maximize well-being. Because again, you are going to want to protect um, people from having their organs harvested and stuff like that. Um, so it's like utilitarianism taken to its logical conclusion becomes something more of like rule utilitarianism, where you have certain rules um, which are based off of maximizing well-being and reducing suffering. Okay, so now we have these two like moral frameworks which started off like pretty like different, and um they're still kind of different, but they have very like similar motives. Um Now this is why we have a lot of like really popular things which are like blends of the two, stuff like threshold deontology. Um but I think things like threshold deontology kind of just point to um the point that I'm trying to make, that um it's these moral frameworks, these like mainstream moral frameworks kind of have the same goal. Um and they're kind of trying to do the same thing. Especially when taken to their like logical conclusions. And even though they might have different like um fuck what's it called when a doc prescriptions, even though they might have different prescriptions, they're trying to get to the same thing. Um and for the same reasons too. Anyways, this is a ramble. I might wake up tomorrow morning and listen to this and be like, "What the fuck is this guy talking about?" Um, I've been partying with some vodka Red Bulls, um, making some music, uh, going ham on Twitter. So maybe I'm just saying nonsense right now. But I figured I'd just come on, do a little recording of what was going through my head. Um, cool. Um, love you. Uh, by the way, I'd love to talk to y'all on like Discord, or maybe I'll start a podcast or something. I really like having conversations like this, and I don't know, something about it just like really it scares me for some reason. So please, I beg you, invite me to have conversations or even debates about stuff. Um, and I'll gladly participate. I just don't have the guts to like initiate stuff. So, yeah.